The night was special at the Metropolitan Grand Hotel. Everything sparkled like diamonds under the huge chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. Rich people walked around in expensive dresses and fancy suits that probably cost more than a car. The air smelled like perfume and fresh flowers. Waiters carried trays of champagne that cost hundreds of dollars per bottle. Among all these servers was a young woman named Maya Rodriguez. She was 28 years old, and honestly, she was exhausted. This was her third double shift this week. Her feet hurt in those black work shoes, but she kept that professional smile on her face. Nobody at these fancy events wanted to see a tired waitress. They wanted invisible service with a pleasant face. Maya had been working at the hotel for almost 3 years now. She knew exactly how to balance those heavy trays, how to walk quickly without looking rushed, and how to disappear into the background. That's what good servers do. They're there when you need them and invisible when you don't. The guests tonight were celebrating some charity event. Maya wasn't exactly sure what cause it was for. Every weekend there was another gala, another fundraiser, another reason for wealthy people to dress up and feel good about writing checks. She didn't mean to sound bitter. These events paid her bills. Barely. As she moved through the crowd collecting empty glasses and replacing them with full ones, Maya caught pieces of conversation. Someone talking about their vacation home in the south of France. Another person complaining about their yacht needing repairs. A woman laughing about spending $5,000 on a handbag. Maya just smiled and nodded when they made eye contact like she was supposed to. Her own apartment was a tiny studio across town. The heater didn't work properly. She had 3 different payment plans going for old medical bills. Her car was making a strange noise she couldn't afford to get checked. But tonight she was surrounded by more wealth than she'd see in 10 lifetimes. That's just how life worked sometimes. The really frustrating part? Maya used to dream of attending events like this as a guest, not as the help. She used to imagine herself on that stage, wearing a beautiful gown, performing for people who appreciated art and music. But dreams don't pay rent. Dreams don't cover your mother's cancer treatments. Dreams are luxury items, and Maya had learned to live without luxuries. Still, as she worked, her eyes kept drifting toward the stage. There was a beautiful grand piano sitting there waiting. The Steinway logo gleamed under the stage lights. Maya knew that piano probably cost more than she'd earn in 5 years of working at the hotel, maybe 10 years. Tonight's entertainment was supposed to be some famous pianist. People had paid extra to hear him play. Maya had overheard guests talking excitedly about it all evening. Apparently, he was a big deal in the classical music world. She felt a small twist in her chest, that familiar ache of something lost. The event coordinator, a sharp woman named Patricia Hendricks, was rushing around making sure everything was perfect. Patricia was the kind of person who noticed if a fork was placed wrong or if a flower arrangement was 1 inch off center. She ran these events like a military operation. Maya respected that, even if it made the job more stressful. The ballroom itself was incredible. Marble floors reflected the chandelier light like mirrors. Gold decorations lined the walls. Round tables covered in white silk filled the space, each one decorated with elaborate centerpieces. It looked like something from a movie. Maya sometimes forgot how beautiful these spaces were because she saw them so often. She glanced at her watch. Dinner would be served in 30 minutes, then the performance would happen during dessert. That was always the schedule. Rich people loved being entertained while eating expensive chocolate mousse or whatever fancy dessert the chef had prepared tonight. Maya grabbed another tray from the kitchen and headed back out. The kitchen was chaos, as always. Chefs yelling, pans clanging, servers rushing in and out. But the ballroom stayed peaceful and elegant. That was the magic trick of events like this. All the stress stayed hidden behind closed doors. As she offered champagne to a group of older men discussing business, Maya's mind wandered. She thought about her mother, safe at home now after years of treatment. Her mom was in remission, thank God. That was worth every sacrifice Maya had made, every dream she'd buried, every tired night and aching foot. Her mother was alive. But late at night, when Maya was alone in her apartment, sometimes she'd press her fingers against her kitchen table like it was a piano keyboard. She'd move through scales and arpeggios in silence, muscle memory refusing to forget even after 5 years. Those were the moments she let herself remember what she'd given up. The announcement would come soon, calling everyone to their seats. Maya could feel the energy in the room building. These wealthy guests were ready for their entertainment. They'd paid for it. They expected excellence, and somewhere in the back of Maya's mind a small voice whispered that she knew exactly what excellence sounded like. She used to create it herself, but that was a lifetime ago. Tonight she was just a waitress in a black uniform, invisible among the glittering crowd, carrying trays and collecting glasses. That was reality. That was her life now. The piano sat on the stage, patient and silent, waiting for skilled hands to bring it to life. Maya looked at it one more time before heading to the kitchen for another tray. She didn't know it yet, but in less than an hour everything was about to change. Sometimes life surprises you. Sometimes courage finds you when you least expect it. Sometimes a piano isn't just a piano. Sometimes it's a doorway back to yourself. The microphone screeched with feedback, making everyone wince. Patricia Hendricks stood on the stage, her face trying hard to maintain a professional smile. But Maya could see the panic in her eyes. Something was wrong. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please." Patricia's voice echoed through the ballroom. The conversations died down slowly as people turned toward the stage. They were expecting good news, an introduction to the evening's star performer. They had no idea what was coming. "I'm afraid I have some unfortunate news," Patricia continued. Maya watched from the side of the room, holding her tray. "Our featured pianist this evening, Leonard Chen, has been involved in a minor traffic accident on his way here. He's perfectly fine, just a fender bender, but his hand was slightly injured and his doctor has advised against performing tonight." The ballroom filled with disappointed groans and frustrated murmurs. Maya saw several guests shake their heads. A woman at table 7 threw her napkin down dramatically. Someone else said loudly, "Well, that's just great. That's the only reason we came." Patricia held up her hands, trying to calm the crowd. "We're working on finding alternative entertainment. Please enjoy your dinner, and we'll sort something out shortly. Again, our sincere apologies." As Patricia rushed off stage, Maya could see her pulling out her phone, probably calling every musician in her contact list. But it was Saturday night. Every decent performer in the city was already booked at some wedding, concert, or event. Finding a replacement on 2 hours' notice was basically impossible. The mood in the ballroom had shifted. People were still eating and drinking, but the excitement had drained away. They felt cheated somehow. They'd paid a lot of money for tickets, and part of that price was the promise of world-class entertainment. Without it, this was just an expensive dinner party. Maya continued her work, but she couldn't stop looking at that piano. It sat there on the stage like a lonely person at a party, all dressed up with nowhere to go. The stage lights made it shine, highlighting every curve of its elegant design. It was beautiful, and it was silent. She knew that piano. Well, not that specific one, but she knew Steinway grands. She'd performed on them during her conservatory days. They had a particular touch, a certain weight to the keys. They responded to your fingers like they understood what you were trying to say. Playing a really good piano was like having a conversation with an old friend. Maya shook her head, trying to push the thoughts away. That part of her life was over. Done. She'd made her choice 5 years ago, and it was the right choice. Her mother needed her. Family came first. Music was just music. It didn't matter how much she loved it. But as she cleared plates from table 12, her fingers moved unconsciously against the edge of her tray. They traced out the opening measures of Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. It was one of her favorite pieces, one she'd performed dozens of times. Her hands remembered it perfectly, even if she hadn't actually played it in years. "Excuse me, miss." A man at the table was trying to get her attention. Maya snapped back to reality. "Yes, sir? Can I get you something?" "Just wondering if they've found anyone to play yet." "My wife and I drove 2 hours for this." Maya gave him her professional smile. "I'm not sure, sir. I believe the coordinator is working on it." He grunted and turned back to his meal. Maya moved on, but she felt that familiar twist in her chest again. All these people wanted to hear beautiful music. They wanted to experience something special. And somewhere in this building, gathering dust in her locker, was a version of herself who could give them exactly that. No, that was crazy thinking. She was a waitress. Waitresses didn't just walk onto stages at fancy galas and start playing piano. That's not how the world worked. There were rules. Social boundaries. She'd probably get fired just for thinking about it. But that piano kept calling to her. During her break, Maya told herself she was just going to the bathroom. Instead, her feet carried her toward the ballroom's side entrance. She stood in the doorway, hidden in shadows, staring at the stage. The dinner service was in full swing. so nobody was paying attention to the empty piano anymore. They'd accepted their disappointment and moved on to their expensive steaks and wine. Maya's heart was beating faster than it should. Her hands were actually shaking. This was ridiculous. She should go back to work. She should forget this whole stupid idea, but what if? What if she just sat down for 1 second? Just touched the keys? Nobody would even notice. She could play one chord, remember what it felt like, and then leave. 2 minutes, that's all. Just 2 minutes to reconnect with a part of herself she'd locked away. The rational part of her brain was screaming. This is your job. You need this job. Don't be stupid. Patricia will fire you on the spot. You'll lose your income. You can't afford to be reckless. But another voice, quieter but stronger, was saying something different. When was the last time you did something just because your heart told you to? When was the last time you were brave? You've been playing it safe for 5 years. 5 years of just surviving. Don't you want to feel alive again, even for just a moment? Maya looked around. The hallway was empty. Through the doorway, she could see the guests focused on their meals and conversations. Patricia was nowhere in sight. Probably still making desperate phone calls. It would just be for a minute. One small moment of rebellion. One tiny gift to herself after years of sacrifice. Before she could change her mind, before logic could stop her, Maya set her tray down on a side table. She smoothed her simple black uniform. She took a deep breath, and then she started walking toward the stage. Her heart pounding so hard she thought it might explode right out of her chest. Maya's legs felt like they weren't her own as she walked toward the stage. Each step felt both too slow and too fast. Her mind was racing with 1,000 thoughts at once. What are you doing? This is insane. Turn back. No, keep going. You'll regret it. You'll regret not doing it more. The stage had small steps on the side, hidden from most of the audience's view. Maya climbed them carefully, trying not to make noise. Her work shoes clicked softly against the wood. She felt like a thief, sneaking towards something that didn't belong to her, except she wasn't stealing anything. She was just going to touch a piano. That's all. Just touch it. The Steinway Grand looked even more beautiful up close. The black surface was polished to such a shine that Maya could see her own reflection in it. She looked small and out of place in her simple uniform. The piano bench was cushioned leather, probably more expensive than her entire month's salary. Maya sat down slowly, her hands trembling as they reached toward the keys. The last time she'd sat at a piano like this, she was 23 years old. She was a conservatory student with a full scholarship and a future that seemed brighter than the sun. She was preparing for competitions. Teachers told her she had real talent, the kind that could lead to a genuine career. Then her mother got sick. Stage 3 cancer. The treatments were expensive, even with insurance. Someone had to take care of her, drive her to appointments, be there during the scary nights. Maya's younger brother was still in high school. Her father had left years ago. There was nobody else. The choice wasn't really a choice. She withdrew from the conservatory. She got a full-time job, then a second job. Music became something she couldn't afford, not in time or money or emotional energy. Piano lessons cost money. Practice time cost money. Even the auditions for scholarships and competitions required fees she couldn't spare. So she stopped. Cold turkey. Like cutting off a part of herself and trying to forget it ever existed. But sitting here now, with her fingers hovering over the keys, Maya felt that part of herself wake up. It had never really died. It had just been sleeping, waiting. She looked out at the ballroom. Most people were still eating, talking, laughing. A few glanced toward the stage, but without much interest. The piano had been empty all night. One more person sitting there didn't mean anything to them. They probably assumed she was some staff member checking something. Maya's fingers finally touched the keys. They were cool and smooth under her fingertips. The sensation sent a shock through her entire body, like touching a live wire. Oh, she'd forgotten this feeling. The weight of the keys, the promise they held. Each one was a door to a different emotion, a different color of sound. She should play something simple. Something quiet that nobody would notice. Just feel the keys for a moment and then leave before anyone realized what she was doing. But her hands had different ideas. They moved to the opening position for Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. It was one of the most beautiful pieces ever written, at least in Maya's opinion. Romantic, emotional, technically challenging, but not in a showy way. It was the kind of music that made people feel things they didn't have words for. Maya closed her eyes. For just a second, she let herself forget where she was. She forgot about the dirty dishes waiting to be cleared. She forgot about her overdrawn bank account and her broken heater and her tired feet. She forgot that she was a waitress who wasn't supposed to be on this stage. She was just a musician, and musicians play. The first chord rang out into the ballroom. Rich, full, perfect. The Steinway had gorgeous tone, exactly as beautiful as she'd imagined. That single chord contained everything Maya had been holding inside for 5 years. All the loss and longing and love she had for music. For a moment, nothing changed. The conversations continued. People kept eating. It was just one chord from a piano. Nothing remarkable. But Maya didn't stop at one chord. Her fingers began to move through the opening phrase of the nocturne. The melody was gentle at first, almost shy, like it was asking permission to exist. The left hand provided soft accompaniment, supporting without overwhelming. This was music that understood subtlety, and this was where things started to change. One person at a nearby table stopped talking mid-sentence, their fork frozen halfway to their mouth. Then another person turned their head toward the stage. Then another. Maya was completely unaware. Her eyes were closed, her entire being focused on the music. Her fingers remembered exactly how to shape each phrase, where to add a little more weight, where to pull back and let the silence speak. This was muscle memory that ran deeper than conscious thought. This was 5 years of practicing, years of lessons, years of loving this music. You don't forget that. Not really. The music began to build. The nocturne had moments of passion within its gentle exterior, places where the emotion swelled like a wave. Maya's hands moved faster, more confident now. She wasn't thinking about being a waitress anymore. She wasn't thinking about being caught. She was thinking only about the music, about doing justice to Chopin's beautiful composition. More heads turned. Conversations faltered and died. Something special was happening, and people could sense it even if they didn't understand exactly what it was. Patricia Hendricks emerged from the hallway, phone still pressed to her ear. She stopped dead in her tracks when she saw Maya at the piano. Her expression went from confusion to shock, to something that might have been anger. But before she could move, the person on the phone apparently said something that made her look at her screen. She ended the call, but she didn't rush the stage. She didn't yell for Maya to stop. Because even Patricia, stressed and professional and rule-following Patricia, could hear that something extraordinary was happening. The music filled the ballroom like light fills a room when you open the curtains. It reached into corners. It touched everyone, whether they wanted it to or not. Some people set down their forks. Others reached for their partner's hand. A few had tears forming in their eyes, though they couldn't have explained why. And Maya played on, lost in the music, unaware that her life was about to change forever. The microphone screeched with feedback, making everyone wince. Patricia Hendricks stood on the stage, her face trying hard to maintain a professional smile. But Maya could see the panic in her eyes. Something was wrong. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please." Patricia's voice echoed through the ballroom. The conversations died down slowly as people turned toward the stage. They were expecting good news, an introduction to the evening's star performer. They had no idea what was coming. "I'm afraid I have some unfortunate news," Patricia continued. Maya watched from the side of the room, holding her tray. "Our featured pianist this evening, Leonard Chen, has been involved in a minor traffic accident on his way here. He's perfectly fine, just a fender bender, but his hand was slightly injured and his doctor has advised against performing tonight." The ballroom filled with disappointed groans and frustrated murmurs. Maya saw several guests shake their heads. A woman at table 7 threw her napkin down dramatically. Someone else said loudly, "Well, that's just great. That's the only reason we came." Patricia held up her hands, trying to calm the crowd. "We're working on finding alternative entertainment. Please enjoy your dinner, and we'll sort something out shortly. Again, our sincere apologies." As Patricia rushed off stage, Maya could see her pulling out her phone, probably calling every musician in her contact list. But it was Saturday night. Every decent performer in the city was already booked at some wedding, concert, or event. Finding a replacement on 2 hours' notice was basically impossible. The mood in the ballroom had shifted. People were still eating and drinking, but the excitement had drained away. They felt cheated somehow. They'd paid a lot of money for tickets, and part of that price was the promise of world-class entertainment. Without it, this was just an expensive dinner party. Maya continued her work, but she couldn't stop looking at that piano. It sat there on the stage like a lonely person at a party, all dressed up with nowhere to go. The stage lights made it shine, highlighting every curve of its elegant design. It was beautiful, and it was silent. She knew that piano. Well, not that specific one, but she knew Steinway grands. She'd performed on them during her conservatory days. They had a particular touch, a certain weight to the keys. They responded to your fingers like they understood what you were trying to say. Playing a really good piano was like having a conversation with an old friend. Maya shook her head, trying to push the thoughts away. That part of her life was over. Done. She'd made her choice 5 years ago, and it was the right choice. Her mother needed her. Family came first. Music was just music. It didn't matter how much she loved it. But as she cleared plates from table 12, her fingers moved unconsciously against the edge of her tray. They traced out the opening measures of Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major. It was one of her favorite pieces, one she'd performed dozens of times. Her hands remembered it perfectly, even if she hadn't actually played it in years. "Excuse me, miss." A man at the table was trying to get her attention. Maya snapped back to reality. "Yes, sir? Can I get you something?" "Just wondering if they've found anyone to play yet." "My wife and I drove 2 hours for this." Maya gave him her professional smile. "I'm not sure, sir. I believe the coordinator is working on it." He grunted and turned back to his meal. Maya moved on, but she felt that familiar twist in her chest again. All these people wanted to hear beautiful music. They wanted to experience something special. And somewhere in this building, gathering dust in her locker, was a version of herself who could give them exactly that. No, that was crazy thinking. She was a waitress. Waitresses didn't just walk onto stages at fancy galas and start playing piano. That's not how the world worked. There were rules. Social boundaries. She'd probably get fired just for thinking about it. But that piano kept calling to her. During her break, Maya told herself she was just going to the bathroom. Instead, her feet carried her toward the ballroom's side entrance. She stood in the doorway, hidden in shadows, staring at the stage. The dinner service was in full swing, so nobody was paying attention to the empty piano anymore. They'd accepted their disappointment and moved on to their expensive steaks and wine. Maya's heart was beating faster than it should. Her hands were actually shaking. This was ridiculous. She should go back to work. She should forget this whole stupid idea, but what if? What if she just sat down for 1 second? Just touched the keys? Nobody would even notice. She could play one chord, remember what it felt like, and then leave. 2 minutes, that's all. Just 2 minutes to reconnect with a part of herself she'd locked away. The rational part of her brain was screaming. "This is your job. You need this job. Don't be stupid. Patricia will fire you on the spot. You'll lose your income. You can't afford to be reckless." But another voice, quieter but stronger, was saying something different. "When was the last time you did something just because your heart told you to? When was the last time you were brave? You've been playing it safe for 5 years. 5 years of just surviving. Don't you want to feel alive again, even for just a moment?" Maya looked around. The hallway was empty. Through the doorway, she could see the guests focused on their meals and conversations. Patricia was nowhere in sight. Probably still making desperate phone calls. It would just be for a minute. One small moment of rebellion. One tiny gift to herself after years of sacrifice. Before she could change her mind, before logic could stop her, Maya set her tray down on a side table. She smoothed her simple black uniform. She took a deep breath, and then she started walking toward the stage, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might explode right out of her chest. The silver-haired man was studying Maya's face like he was trying to solve a puzzle. The woman beside him gripped his arm, speaking in an urgent whisper that Maya couldn't quite hear. Whatever she was saying made his eyes widen. "Westbrook Conservatory," he said slowly. 5 years ago. Maya Rodriguez. He paused, and then something clicked. "The Steinhardt competition. You won it. You were 23. I remember now because I was one of the judges that year." Maya felt the blood drain from her face. The Steinhardt competition had been one of the biggest achievements of her life. Winning it had earned her a full scholarship extension and caught the attention of some really important people in the classical music world. And then 6 months later, she disappeared from that world completely. Yes, Maya admitted. "That was me." The man looked genuinely shocked. "You just vanished." We all wondered what happened to you. There were rumors you'd moved to Europe or that you'd gotten injured, but nobody knew for sure. And now you're here, working as a... He gestured at her uniform, seeming to realize how that might sound. I'm sorry, I don't mean that the way it sounds. It's okay, Maya said, though her voice was shaky. Life happened. My mother got cancer. I had to leave school to take care of her and work. Music became impossible. I couldn't afford it anymore. The ballroom had gotten quiet again, everyone listening to this strange conversation unfolding on stage. Maya hated being the center of attention like this. She could feel hundreds of eyes on her, judging her uniform, her tear-stained face, her whole situation. The woman who'd been standing with the silver-haired man stepped forward. She was elegantly dressed, with kind eyes and a warm smile. Your mother, she said gently. Is she all right now? She's in remission, Maya answered. Almost 2 years now. Thank God, the woman said, and she sounded like she meant it. But what about you? Have you been playing at all? Maya shook her head. I don't have a piano. I work 6 days a week. I haven't really played in 5 years. Tonight was... She gestured helplessly at the piano behind her. I don't even know why I did this. It was stupid. Stupid? The silver-haired man looked at her like she was crazy. That was one of the most beautiful performances I've heard in years. And I hear a lot of performances. I'm Leonard Chen, by the way. I conduct the City Symphony Orchestra. Maya's heart stopped. Leonard Chen, of course. She'd read about him in music magazines back in her conservatory days. He was one of the most respected conductors in the country. And she'd just played piano in front of him while wearing a waitress uniform, with no preparation, after not touching a piano in 5 years. This was a nightmare. And I'm Patricia Ashford, the woman added. I direct the Philharmonic Society. We organize concerts, sponsor young artists, that sort of thing. Maya felt like she might faint. These weren't just random wealthy guests. These were the kind of people who could make or break a classical musician's career. And here she was, looking like a complete mess, having broken probably a dozen rules by getting on stage. She glanced toward the side of the room and saw her manager, Patricia Hendricks, standing with her mouth open. Patricia looked torn between fury and confusion. Maya knew she was definitely getting fired. There was no way around it now. Look, Maya started, I really should go. I'm sorry for interrupting your evening. I know I'm not supposed to... Not supposed to what? Leonard Chen interrupted. Share an extraordinary gift? Make everyone in this room feel something genuine? Remind us why we love music in the first place? He turned to address the whole ballroom. Does anyone here think she should apologize? A chorus of no rang out from multiple tables. People were shaking their heads. Someone shouted, she was amazing. Another voice called out, best part of the evening. Maya didn't know what to do with this. She'd expected anger, not support. She'd expected to be in trouble, not praised. Nothing about this made sense. Patricia Ashford pulled out her phone. I'm recording this for my colleagues who aren't here. They're not going to believe it. She smiled at Maya. Do you know how rare it is to find a talent like yours? Especially one that's been hidden away for 5 years? I'm not hidden away, Maya protested weakly. I'm working. I have bills to pay. Music doesn't pay bills. It could, Leonard Chen said seriously. It should. Maya, you're making minimum wage serving champagne when you could be performing on major stages. That's not right. That's not how the world should work. But that is how the world works, Maya said. And she couldn't keep the bitterness out of her voice. Music is for people who can afford it. People with families who support them. Or scholarships or trust funds. People who don't have sick mothers and medical debt and rent that's 3 months behind. The ballroom got uncomfortable at that. Maya had said the quiet part out loud. These wealthy people like to think the arts were accessible to everyone based on talent alone. But the truth was messier than that. Talent wasn't enough when you were choosing between practicing piano and keeping the lights on. Patricia Ashford looked sad. You're right. The system is broken. It fails people like you all the time. But that doesn't mean we can't try to fix it, at least in this one case, or no. What do you mean? Maya asked suspiciously. Leonard Chen and Patricia Ashford exchanged a long look, having some kind of silent conversation. Finally, Leonard nodded. I'm conducting a series of concerts at Carnegie Hall next season, he said. 6 concerts featuring emerging artists, young pianists who deserve a spotlight. One of our confirmed performers just withdrew yesterday because of a scheduling conflict. We've been scrambling to find a replacement. Maya's breath caught. Carnegie Hall, that was the dream. That was the venue every classical musician hoped to play at least once in their lifetime. I know what you're going to say, Leonard continued. You're out of practice. You work too much. You don't have time to prepare. I hear all of that. But Maya, what I just heard you play, that wasn't the sound of someone who's lost their skill. That was artistry, real, genuine artistry. The technical skills are still there. The emotional depth is still there. Everything you need is still there, just waiting to be used again. Maya felt tears forming again. This was too much. This was everything she'd wanted 5 years ago, being offered to her in the worst possible circumstances. She wasn't ready. She wasn't the person she used to be. How could she possibly perform at Carnegie Hall? I don't have a piano to practice on, she said, grasping for practical objections. I can't afford studio time. I work 50, 60 hours a week. Even if I wanted to do this, I don't see how it's possible. Patricia Ashford smiled. That's where I come in. The Philharmonic Society has practice studios that sit empty most of the time. You can use them whenever you want. We also have an artist sponsorship program specifically for situations like this. We can provide a stipend to cover your basic expenses while you prepare. You wouldn't have to work 6 days a week. You could focus on music. Maya's mind was racing. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. This was fairy tale stuff, not real life. There had to be a catch. Why would you do this? She asked. You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. Leonard Chen looked at her seriously. Because I was a judge the day you won the Steinhardt competition. I remember thinking that you were something special. And then you vanished, and I always wondered what happened. Now I know. And now I have a chance to help make things right. Why wouldn't I take that chance? Maya stood on that stage feeling like the world had tilted sideways. 5 minutes ago she was a waitress. Now she was being offered a chance to perform at Carnegie Hall. Her brain couldn't process the shift fast enough. I need to think, she said, her voice barely working. This is a lot. I can't just... Of course, Patricia Ashford said kindly. Take all the time you need. Here's my card. She pulled a business card from her purse and handed it to Maya. My personal cell number is on there. Call me anytime, day or night. We can work out all the details. Leonard Chen also produced a card. And here's mine. The concert isn't until next spring, so you'd have about 5 months to prepare. That's plenty of time for someone with your skill level. Trust me, I've worked with hundreds of pianists. I know talent when I hear it. Maya took both cards with shaking hands. They felt impossibly heavy, like they weighed 1,000 pounds each. These little pieces of paper represented a door back to her old life. A life she'd thought was closed forever. The ballroom erupted in applause again. People were on their feet, clapping not just for the performance but for this whole unexpected scene. It was like they were all witnesses to something magical, and they wanted to be part of it. Maya looked out at all those faces. Some were smiling. Some were crying. A few were recording on their phones. She saw her manager, Patricia Hendricks, and was surprised to see that Patricia was crying too. Not angry crying, happy crying. Patricia made her way to the stage and gently took Maya's arm. Come on, she said softly. Let's get you backstage for a minute. You need a break from all this attention. Maya nodded gratefully and let Patricia guide her off the stage. As they walked through the curtain into the backstage area, Maya expected a lecture about breaking rules and overstepping boundaries. But it never came. Instead, Patricia just pulled her into a hug. That was beautiful, she whispered. I had no idea you could play like that. I'm sorry, Maya said automatically. I know I wasn't supposed to. Stop apologizing, Patricia interrupted. Look, technically, yes, you broke about a dozen protocols. But Maya, you saved the entire evening. Those guests were miserable about the canceled performance. You gave them something even better than what they paid for. If anything, I should be thanking you. Maya pulled back, studying Patricia's face. So I'm not fired? Patricia laughed, wiping her eyes. Fired? Are you kidding? After what just happened? The hotel's owner is out there in that audience. I just saw him giving you a standing ovation. I think you're pretty safe. But my uniform, Maya gestured at herself. I look ridiculous. You look real, Patricia corrected. You look like exactly what you are. Someone who works hard, who's been through some stuff and who has an incredible gift. Those people out there don't care about your uniform. They care about what you made them feel. Maya leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had been keeping her upright was starting to fade. I don't know what to do, she admitted. Those people, Leonard Chen and Patricia Ashford, they want me to perform at Carnegie Hall. That's insane. I haven't seriously practiced in 5 years. But you haven't lost it, Patricia pointed out. We all just heard that. Maya, when are you going to get another opportunity like this? These people want to help you. They believe in you. Don't you think you owe it to yourself to at least try? What if I fail? Maya's voice was small. What if I practice for months and then get on that stage and freeze? Or what if I'm just not as good as I used to be? What if tonight was some kind of fluke? Patricia shook her head firmly. That wasn't a fluke. That was years of training and natural talent and raw emotion all coming together. Could you fail? Sure, anything's possible. But you could also succeed. And wouldn't you rather try and fail than spend the rest of your life wondering what might have been? Maya thought about that. She'd spent 5 years trying not to wonder what might have been, trying not to think about the career she'd abandoned, the dreams she'd put away. But those thoughts never really went away. They just got quieter, hiding in the background of her mind. My mom, Maya said suddenly. I should call her. She needs to know about this. Use my office, Patricia offered, pointing down the hallway. Take as long as you need. Maya walked to Patricia's small office and closed the door. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands and called her mother. Mija, her mother's voice was warm and slightly sleepy. Is everything okay? You're usually not done with work this early. Mom, Maya said, and her voice broke. Something happened. Something crazy. What? Are you hurt? No, nothing bad. Maya didn't even know where to start. I played piano tonight. At the gala. In front of everyone, there was silence on the other end. Then, you played? But baby, you haven't played in years. I know. There was a piano there and the scheduled performer canceled and I couldn't help myself. I sat down and played. And Mom, people from the music world were there. Important people. They want me to perform at Carnegie Hall, her mother gasped. Carnegie Hall? Maya, that's incredible, is it? Maya felt tears coming again. Mom, I gave up music to take care of you. To work and pay bills. If I take this opportunity, if I focus on music again, I feel like I'm betraying all that sacrifice. I feel like I'm saying it wasn't worth it. Oh, baby, no. Her mother's voice was thick with emotion. That sacrifice was worth it because I'm alive. I'm here. I get to see you chase your dreams again. That's all I ever wanted. Do you know how guilty I've felt? Watching you work yourself to death at jobs you hate, knowing it was because of me. It wasn't your fault you got sick, Maya protested. And it wasn't your fault you had to help, her mother replied. But that chapter is over now, Maya. I'm healthy. I'm okay. You don't have to take care of me anymore. It's time for you to take care of yourself. It's time for you to be the musician you were meant to be. What if I can't do it? Maya whispered. Then you can't. And that's okay. But at least you'll know you tried. Maya, I raised you to be brave. Don't let fear steal this from you. Maya closed her eyes, letting her mother's words sink in. Be brave. She'd been brave 5 years ago when she'd given up everything for her family. Maybe it was time to be brave in a different way. Maybe it was time to believe in herself again. Okay, Maya said softly. Okay, I'll do it. Her mother let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. That's my girl. Oh, honey, I'm so proud of you. Your father would have been too. They talked for a few more minutes, making plans for Maya to visit tomorrow and tell her mother everything in person. When Maya finally hung up, she felt different. Lighter somehow. Like a weight she'd been carrying for 5 years had finally started to lift. She walked back out to find Patricia waiting in the hallway. Well? Patricia asked. Maya took a deep breath and pulled out the 2 business cards from her pocket. I'm going to call them tomorrow. I'm going to do it. Patricia grinned and pulled her into another hug. Good. Now come on, you should get back out there. People want to congratulate you. Can I change first? Maya asked, looking down at her uniform. I really do feel ridiculous. You look perfect, Patricia assured her. But yes, go change if you want. Take the rest of the night off. You've earned it. Maya changed into her regular clothes in the employee locker room. Jeans, a simple sweater, and her old sneakers. Nothing fancy. But at least she didn't look like the help anymore. She stared at herself in the mirror for a moment, trying to recognize the person looking back. Was this really happening? Had her entire life just changed in the span of 20 minutes? When she emerged, the gala was winding down. Many guests were leaving, but several lingered near the exit, apparently hoping to see her again. Maya felt her face heat up with embarrassment. She wasn't used to being noticed, let alone celebrated. Leonard Chen and Patricia Ashford were waiting near the ballroom entrance, talking with a small group of people. When they saw Maya, their faces lit up. "There she is," Leonard said warmly. "Maya, there are some people who'd like to meet you." The next half hour was a blur. Maya shook hands with what felt like 100 people. Everyone had something kind to say. A few were other musicians who wanted to talk shop. Some were wealthy donors who offered their support. One woman even asked if Maya would consider teaching her daughter piano lessons. Through it all, Maya felt like she was floating outside her body, watching this happen to someone else. This couldn't be her life. She was a waitress who could barely pay rent. She wasn't someone important people wanted to meet. But here they were, treating her like she mattered, like what she'd done was significant. "I still can't quite believe this is real," Maya admitted to Patricia Ashford during a brief, quiet moment. "A few hours ago I was worried about making rent." Patricia smiled gently. "Let's talk about practical things then. That might help ground you." She pulled out her phone and opened a calendar app. "The concert is scheduled for March 15th. That gives you almost 5 months to prepare. How much time do you think you'll need to practice each day to feel confident?" Maya thought about it. "Back in conservatory, I practiced about 4 to 6 hours a day. But I was younger then and I didn't have a job. Now, I don't know. Maybe 3 hours, if I can manage that." "What if you didn't have to work at all?" Patricia asked. "What if you could dedicate yourself to music full-time like you did before?" "That's not realistic," Maya said automatically. "I have bills, rent, insurance. I can't just not work." Patricia pulled out another business card, but this time she wrote something on the back. "This is the amount we typically provide for our sponsored artists. It's enough to cover basic living expenses for 6 months. No strings attached. You focus on music, we handle the rest." Maya looked at the number and felt dizzy. It was more than she made in a month at the hotel. For 6 months. Just like that. "This is too much," she said, trying to hand the card back. "I can't accept this." "Why not?" Patricia asked. "We have a budget specifically for this purpose. We've used it for dozens of artists over the years. You're not taking charity, Maya. You're accepting support that every artist deserves. There's a difference." Leonard Chen stepped over to join them. "She's right, you know. The arts are built on patronage. Always have been. Mozart had patrons. Beethoven had patrons. It's how the system works. Let us be your patrons, but what if I fail?" Maya asked, voicing her deepest fear. "What if I take this money and then I can't deliver? What if I get on that stage and prove that I'm not as good as you think I am?" Leonard looked at her seriously. "Then you fail. And it will be disappointing, sure, but it won't be the end of the world." "Maya, do you know how many performances I've conducted where someone made mistakes? Where things didn't go perfectly? Hundreds, maybe thousands. And you know what?" The world kept turning. "Music is about the attempt, about the courage to get on stage and be vulnerable. Success isn't perfection. Success is showing up and giving everything you have. Besides," Patricia added, "I don't think you're going to fail. I've been doing this for 30 years. I know talent when I see it. And I know dedication. You didn't lose your skills in 5 years of not playing. That tells me your foundation is rock solid. A few months of serious practice and you'll be better than ever." Maya wanted to believe them. God, she wanted to believe them so badly. But fear was a powerful thing. It kept whispering in her ear that this was a mistake, that she'd embarrass herself, that she should just stick with what she knew. "Can I ask you something?" Leonard said. "When you were sitting at that piano tonight before you started playing, what were you feeling?" Maya thought back to that moment. Terror, mostly. "I was terrified of getting caught, of getting in trouble. And once you started playing, Maya paused, remembering. "I felt free. Like I was finally being myself again after pretending to be someone else for 5 years. Like I could breathe properly for the first time in forever." Leonard nodded. "That's what music is supposed to feel like. That's what living authentically feels like. You've been suffocating in the wrong life, Maya. This is your chance to step into the right one. Are you really going to say no to that?" Maya felt tears threatening again. She'd cried more tonight than she had in the last year combined. "You make it sound so simple." "It is simple," Patricia said. "Not easy, but simple. You're a musician. That's who you are, whether you're playing piano or serving drinks. The only question is whether you're going to honor that truth or keep running from it. Maya pulled out the 2 business cards again, looking at the phone numbers written there. 2 small pieces of paper that represented a completely different future. A future where she woke up excited to practice instead of dreading another shift. A future where she could call herself a musician without feeling like a fraud. Okay, she said again, more firmly this time. Yes, I want to do this. I'm scared out of my mind, but I want to do this. Patricia pulled her into a hug. That's the right answer. Being scared means you care. It means this matters to you. If you weren't scared, I'd be worried. Leonard shook her hand formally. Welcome back to the music world, Maya. We're going to do great things together. I'm sure of it. They spent another few minutes working out logistics. Patricia would email Maya the details about the practice studios and the sponsorship program. Leonard would send her the specific pieces he wanted her to prepare for the concert. They'd schedule regular check-ins to monitor her progress and provide guidance. Maya's head was spinning with information, but underneath the confusion was a growing sense of excitement. This was really happening. She was really doing this. As the evening finally wound down and people started heading home, Maya found herself alone in the now empty ballroom. The piano still sat on the stage, patient and waiting. She walked over to it one more time and gently touched the keys, not pressing them down, just feeling their surface. Thank you, she whispered to the instrument, feeling only slightly ridiculous for talking to an object. Thank you for giving me my life back. The piano, of course, didn't answer, but Maya felt like it understood anyway. Musicians had strange relationships with their instruments. They were tools, yes, but they were also partners, confidants, friends. She pulled out her phone and took a picture of the piano, wanting to remember this moment. The moment everything changed. The moment she decided to be brave. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Can't sleep. Too excited. Call me when you get home. Love you so much. Maya smiled, feeling warmth spread through her chest. Whatever happened next, whatever challenges lay ahead, she wasn't facing them alone. She had her mother's support. She had Leonard and Patricia's belief in her. And most importantly, she had herself. She had her talent, her training, and her love for music. That would have to be enough. As Maya left the hotel that night, walking out into the cool air, she felt different. The weight of disappointment and regret that she'd been carrying for 5 years felt lighter. Not gone completely, but manageable. She'd spent so long thinking her story was over, but maybe it was just beginning. The next morning, Maya woke up convinced it had all been a dream. But when she checked her phone, there were the business cards she'd photographed, the texts from her mother, and 3 missed calls from numbers she didn't recognize. Her heart started racing again. It was real. All of it was real. She called Patricia Ashford first, her hands shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. Maya, Patricia answered on the second ring, sounding genuinely happy to hear from her. I was hoping you'd call this morning. How are you feeling? Overwhelmed, Maya admitted. And terrified. And excited. All at once, Patricia laughed warmly. That's perfectly normal. Listen, I've already sent you an email with all the details we discussed last night. Contract for the sponsorship, studio schedule, everything. Take your time reading through it. If you have questions or concerns, we can meet in person to go over it. A contract? Maya's stomach flipped. This was becoming more real by the second. Standard stuff, Patricia assured her. Basically just says we'll provide financial support and resources, and you agree to perform at the Carnegie Hall concert. There's no penalty if you change your mind or if things don't work out. We're not trying to trap you into anything. This is meant to help, not add pressure. After they hung up, Maya spent the next hour reading through the email and attached documents. Everything Patricia said was true. The contract was straightforward and fair. The studio space was available starting immediately. The stipend would cover her rent, bills, and living expenses with some left over. She could actually focus on music without worrying about starving or getting evicted. It felt too good to be true. But here it was in writing from legitimate organizations with real addresses and phone numbers. Her phone rang. This time it was Leonard Chen. Good morning, Maya. I hope I'm not calling too early. No, I've been up for hours, Maya said. Too excited to sleep, honestly. Excellent. That's the energy we need. He sounded pleased. I wanted to talk to you about repertoire. For the concert, I'd like you to prepare 3 pieces. 1 Chopin, since that's clearly a strength for you. One Bach, because Bach is essential for any serious pianist. And one piece of your choice, something that speaks to you personally. Does that sound manageable? Maya thought about it. 3 pieces in 5 months with the ability to practice full-time. Yes, I can do that. Perfect. I'll email you my specific recommendations, but you should have final say on what you perform. This is your concert, your moment. I'm just here to guide and support. They talked for another 20 minutes about logistics and expectations. Leonard suggested she start slowly, easing back into serious practice to avoid injury. He recommended a few books on performance psychology that might help with her nerves. He even offered to sit in on some of her practice sessions once she was further along, to provide feedback. By the time Maya hung up, her head was spinning again, but in a good way. These people weren't just offering her an opportunity. They were investing in her, believing in her, treating her like she was worth the effort. She called her mother next. "Tell me everything," her mother demanded immediately. "Don't leave out a single detail." Maya spent the next hour recounting the entire evening, from the moment she sat at the piano to the contracts and phone calls this morning. Her mother listened, asking questions, laughing at the right parts, crying at the emotional moments. "I'm so proud of you, Mija," her mother said when Maya finished. "But I'm also not surprised. You were always meant for this. I just wish it hadn't taken so long to get back to it." "Mom, about that," Maya said carefully, "I need to make sure you're really okay with this. I gave up music to take care of you. If I go back to it now, I don't want you to feel like—" "Stop," her mother interrupted firmly. "Maya Elena Rodriguez, listen to me. I am healthy, I am fine. What I am not fine with is watching you waste your life because you think you owe me something. You don't owe me anything. You're my daughter. Taking care of you, supporting your dreams, that's my job. It's what I'm supposed to do." "But I'm 28, Maya protested. "I should be taking care of myself. And now you will be. By doing what you love, what you're gifted at. Baby, when you were little and you first sat at a piano, you played for 3 hours straight. You were 6 years old. I couldn't pull you away. Your kindergarten teacher said she'd never seen a child so focused on anything. That's when I knew. Music isn't something you do. It's something you are." Maya felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "What if I fail, Mom? What if I'm not good enough anymore?" "Then you fail. And then you get up and try again. That's life. But Maya, you won't fail. I know you won't. You know why? Because you care too much. Because this matters too much to you. People who care that deeply don't fail. They might struggle, but they don't fail." After hanging up with her mother, Maya sat in her tiny apartment and looked around. The place was shabby, the furniture secondhand, the kitchen barely functional. But it had been home for 3 years. It had been her refuge during the hardest time of her life. She walked over to the small table where she sometimes pressed her fingers against the surface, pretending it was a piano. How many hours had she spent here, moving through scales and pieces in her mind, keeping the music alive even when she couldn't play it out loud? That part of her life was ending. A new chapter was beginning. Maya spent the rest of the day handling practical matters. She called her manager at the hotel and gave notice. Patricia had been wonderful, understanding completely and even offering to be a reference if Maya ever needed one in the future. She called her landlord and explained she'd be able to pay the back rent she owed within the week. The relief in doing that was enormous. Then she sat down at her laptop and started researching. She looked up recordings of the pieces Leonard had suggested. She read articles about performance anxiety and how to overcome stage fright. She watched videos of other pianists performing at Carnegie Hall, trying to imagine herself in their place. The more she researched, the more real it became. And the more real it became, the more excited she felt. 3 days later, Maya walked into the Philharmonic Society's practice studios for the first time. The building was beautiful, old but well-maintained with high ceilings and excellent acoustics. Patricia met her at the entrance with a warm smile and a set of keys. "Welcome to your new office," Patricia said, leading her down a hallway lined with practice rooms. "You're in Studio 7. It's one of our larger rooms with a beautiful Steinway grand. I think you'll like it." She opened the door and Maya gasped. The room was spacious and bright with large windows letting in natural light. And there, in the center of the room, was a gorgeous black grand piano. Not as large as the one at the hotel, but still a professional quality instrument. "It's perfect," Maya whispered. "It's yours," Patricia said, handing her the keys. "For as long as you need it." There's a schedule on the wall showing when other musicians might be in nearby studios. But Studio 7 is reserved exclusively for you until March. After Patricia left, Maya stood alone in the room for a long moment. Then she walked slowly to the piano and sat down. The bench was comfortable, the height adjustable. The keys were perfectly maintained, smooth under her fingers. She played a single note, then another, then a scale, then a chord progression, and then, without planning it, she started playing the Chopin nocturne she'd performed at the Gala. But this time was different. This time she wasn't playing in secret, stolen moments. This time she was playing because she was supposed to be here, because this was her job now, because she was a musician. The music filled the room, and Maya felt something inside her that had been broken start to heal. She'd spent 5 years in exile from herself, 5 years pretending to be someone she wasn't. But she was home now. She was back where she belonged. Hours passed without her noticing. She worked through scales and exercises, retraining her muscles. She stumbled over passages that used to be easy, felt frustrated when her fingers didn't respond as quickly as they once had. But she also felt joy, pure, uncomplicated joy at being able to do this again. When she finally stopped, the sun was setting outside the windows. Maya's hands were tired, her back was sore from sitting, and she was happier than she'd been in 5 years. She pulled out her phone and texted her mother, "I'm home." Her mother's response came immediately. "I know, baby. I know." Over the next few weeks, Maya fell into a routine. She practiced 4 to 5 hours a day, gradually building up her stamina and skill. Leonard came by once a week to listen and offer guidance. Patricia checked in regularly to make sure she had everything she needed. The pieces started coming together. The Chopin grew more refined. The Bach became clear and more precise. For her personal choice piece, Maya selected a modern composition by a living composer, something challenging and beautiful that felt like it represented who she was now, not who she used to be. There were hard days, days when her fingers wouldn't cooperate, when the music sounded wrong no matter how many times she tried, days when the fear came back and whispered that she was fooling herself, that she'd never be ready, that she should quit before she embarrassed herself. But there were more good days than bad. Days when the music flowed effortlessly. Days when she felt connected to something larger than herself.